Hi everyone, thanks so much for welcoming me here today. So I'm going to speak from the heart and from my phone, but it comes from the heart. I think, so look, my question is, do streaming services require regulation? And the short answer is no. I could leave now, but I've got more knowledge to share. We'd need to define what a streaming service is first, right? Is it anywhere where you derive a digital income from, or is it just where you listen to music on streaming services, just where you listen to music online? I'll come back to that. Streaming services, or DSPs, so digital service providers, they're international businesses. We don't need to legislate them. They came to South Africa long after they were in other countries first, and they sorted out these problems. We don't need to mess with that. They know which licenses they need, and they largely self-regulate. In fact, what we need to do is say thank you to DSPs, because they solve the problem for the music industry. It's easier than ever for artists that are in remote areas of the country, if they just have an internet connection and they've recorded their song. Technology affords them the opportunity to record at home, and programs, software affords them the opportunity to make that music sound as good as it can sound, and the internet affords them the opportunity to get their songs online and go through a distributor such as myself. And then streaming services allow their fans to directly access those songs. So in a sense, streaming services have taken away the gatekeepers. And when they came into South Africa, they knew which licenses they need, and they applied for those licenses, and they pay the rights over to, they pay the royalties over to artists. They pay streaming royalties over to distributors like myself, and we pay them over to artists. So that system is not broken. We should not aim to fix it. What all of that means is that an artist in Jazini, where KUMISA's new office is, will have the opportunity to go and learn more about the industry and learn that they can access something like this, which they may have not known. And that artist can reach their relatives across the rest of the country, find new fans in Africa and South Africans living abroad. That's a game changer. That's new in this market, and I think that so many artists maybe don't have access to the internet, which means that they don't have access to the world's listeners. To refer to what literally every other speaker has said at this microphone, is that we need to work together. What we need is a better way of sharing the information, because what we currently have is we have digital service providers, so Apple and Spotify's, we have the Dittos and the distro kids and the CD babies and the label services companies, so your Orchards and Believe and Ditto Plus, and record labels that all receive metadata. And that metadata is what you see on your screen when you listen to music. When you play that song, you see what the artist's name is, what the title of the song is, what the album name is. And we need a way to share that information more widely, because all of the stakeholders in the industry use that very same information to pay artists. But what we have is a system whereby artists are sending the same information to us, or they're sending it to the label, they're sending it to Samro, to Capasso, they're sending the same information to all of these different bodies. So my feeling is that we need a centralized way to connect that, or as Andre mentioned last night, a back office. That's the first solution that I'd like to offer. It comes back to the sharing of data, the sharing of information. But coming back to streaming services and slightly off topic, I want to use this opportunity to dispel one of the streaming industry myths that I hear often on the streets, and that is the maths. That if I've got one stream here, if I've got 1 million streams, I'm going to earn this much money. And I just want to tell you that it does not work like that. I want to tell you how it does work. And I'm going to ask you to use your imagination for this. Imagine the largest spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet you've ever seen, or Google Sheets, with all the rows, scroll right down to the bottom. That's as many line items as there are for streaming service payments, because the mental gymnastics I'm going to ask you to do is to take how many streaming providers there are. We know of Apple and Spotify, and most of us use those. But there are lots of them all over the world, hundreds, right? Take every single one of those streaming services, multiplied by the amount of plans they have. So on Apple, there's a family plan, there's a student plan, and there's an individual subscription or premium subscription. Those are all paid plans. Then there's Spotify, there's an ad-funded plan, there's a free tier, well, that's the free tier. Then you get a family plan. There are dozens of plans that all of these services have in order to get users, right? In order to have the most attractive price for users. All of those plans then multiplied by as many countries as there are in the world, because we all have different currencies. There's a different rate of exchange. And that is how many different pricing options there are. It's a big sheet when you start thinking about the globe and the amount of streaming services and the amount of plans that they have. Because when you're in South Africa as a South African artist, and your fan base is largely South Africans and they're listening on Spotify, you'll be earning a different rate if your fans are teenagers and they're on a free advertising plan, than if you're a South African artist where your fan base is in New York and they are all on premium subscription plans, because there's a value to that premium plan versus an ad-supported plan. Also, in New York, they have the dollar, which is a lot more purchasing power, excuse me, than the rand. Further to that, how streaming services then pay out is that they pay out by market share. So all the money goes into a pot. And after that monthly pot, they look at who's got the biggest market share. It's going to be your majors, so Universal, and it's going to be your Sonys. And then after that, it's going to be independent. So a pot is weighed up and paid according to where the content comes from. A very interesting study was done in user-centric payments by Deezer many years ago already, where they tested the system. If you go and you play this artist, a portion of the money that you pay will go to that artist. And since then, Universal and Spotify have done tests in that method of payment. And I believe that SoundCloud is now using a user-centric system of paying artists. All of this to say that I wanted to go into a little bit of detail of how these companies think about payments, and that it's not something for us to fix. We have bigger fish to fry. We have a culture of learning and experience and secrecy that we need to break down. We need to start sharing information. So I guess, I'm sure I probably haven't spoken for 10 minutes, but I kind of burned through everything that I wanted to address. I guess in short, what I wanted to say is that when artists start seeing themselves as businesses, the businesses that they are, they'll start sharing information with other artists. When they start deciding to help each other, then they'll see growth. What I see in South Africa is very different to what I see in the other African territories where I work. Artists are constantly sharing information. And when I say information, I mean moaning and speaking about their gripes, but they'll put a figure to it. They'll put numbers and details to it, and that's how people learn. Whereas over here, I kind of get the feeling that, you'll moan about something a little bit, but it's the details that make people learn. As soon as you can start sharing details about, I earned this, I played for this long, or I signed this deal. If you're signing the deal with someone and you're speaking to a different artist, they can learn from that information. The industry does talk, but it's in closed groups. And I'm appealing to everyone to speak to the artists and people that you know in this industry to please work together, because there are a number of bad habits that our industry has picked up, but we have the legislation to address it. The only reason why we don't is because people don't know. And that's what I wanted to close off with. Thank you so much for your time.